Dr. Alexandra Alex Mitchell pressed her hand against the obsidian-like surface of the alien wall, watching in fascination as ripples of iridescent light followed her touch. After 15 years of being ridiculed by her colleagues for her theories about advanced precursor civilizations, vindication tasted sweeter than she'd imagined. Dr. Mitchell. Jake Reynolds, her assistant, called from further down the corridor. "You need to see this." She pulled her hand away from the wall, noting how the light lingered for several seconds before fading. The atmosphere inside the structure was perfectly breathable, despite being sealed for what their initial scan suggested was at least 1,000,000 years. Everything about this place defied conventional archaeology. Alex jogged toward Jake's voice, her footsteps echoing strangely in the geometric patterns of the corridor. The same symbols kept repeating along the walls, circles within triangles within squares, all flowing into each other in ways that made her eyes hurt if she looked too long. "What did you find?" she asked, rounding the corner. Then she stopped dead in her tracks. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that by all rights shouldn't exist. Their surface scans had shown the temple complex was roughly the size of a football field, but the room before them stretched for what seemed like miles, its ceiling lost in shadows that their lights couldn't penetrate. "That's impossible," xenorchaeologist Dr. Furt chittered, their mantis-like form trembling slightly. "The physical dimensions. Welcome to impossible," Alex muttered, pulling out her scanner. The readings made no sense. According to the device, the room both existed and didn't exist simultaneously. "Jake, get the mapping drones up." 3 sleek drones detached from Jake's backpack, their anti-gravity fields humming to life. They shot forward into the darkness, their mapping lasers creating a web of blue light. Dr. Mitchell, the expedition's AI liaison, CARA, spoke through their comm systems. "I'm detecting significant anomalies in the spatial readings. The chamber appears to be folding in on itself at quantum levels." Before Alex could respond, a scream pierced the air. She spun around to see 2 of their team members, Dr. Sarah Collins and Dr. Marcus Wong, being pulled into the wall. The seemingly solid surface had become liquid, dragging them in despite their desperate struggles. "Sarah, Marcus." Alex lunged forward, but Jake held her back. "Look." He pointed at the wall where their colleagues had vanished. The surface was rippling like mercury, and strange symbols were appearing and disappearing in rapid succession. Dr. Verk's translator squawked as they rapidly clicked their mandibles. "We must leave. This place, it's wrong. Wrong in ways your species can't understand." "CARA, analyze those symbols," Alex ordered, shrugging off Jake's grip. "And get me any readings you can from the wall." The symbols appear to be shifting through multiple known and unknown languages, CARA reported. But there's something else. The wall appears to be generating neural patterns similar to human brainwaves. A low hum began to build in the chamber, and the lighting shifted from its previous ethereal glow to a deep, pulsing red. The wall where Sarah and Marcus had vanished began to bulge outward. "Movement," Jake shouted, raising his scientific scanner like a weapon. The mercurial surface of the wall split open, and Sarah and Marcus stumbled out, looking dazed but unharmed. They collapsed to their knees, gasping. "Sarah, Marcus, are you all right?" Alex rushed to their side, medical scanner already in hand. Their vital signs were normal, but there was something odd about their neural readings. What happened?" Sarah asked, her voice shaky. "The last thing I remember is taking readings of the wall. And then, nothing." Marcus nodded slowly. "It's all blank. Like those hours never existed." Dr. Verk's antennae were fully extended, their alien features showing what Alex had learned to recognize as extreme distress. "This is wrong. The builders, they were not meant to be found. Not by us. Not by anyone." Alex helped her colleagues to their feet, but her attention was drawn back to the wall. For just a moment, she could have sworn she saw something in its shifting surface, a reflection that wasn't her own, watching them with ancient, knowing eyes. "CARA," she said quietly, "begin full spectrum analysis of the entire chamber. Whatever this place is, whatever built it. I think it's been waiting for us." The chamber's red lighting pulsed once more, and in the distance, something that should have been impossible began to move. "Your neural patterns are becoming increasingly erratic, Dr. Mitchell." Kiara's holographic form flickered beside Alex as she studied the latest readings. "I must insist you take a rest period." Alex rubbed her tired eyes, glancing at the time display. 36 hours since the incident with Sarah and Marcus. The chamber they'd discovered had been sealed off after 3 more team members reported seeing impossible things in its depths. Now they were in what appeared to be some sort of control room, though its purpose remained unclear. "Show me that anomalous pattern again," she said, ignoring KRA's concern. The AI complied, projecting a series of waves that pulsed with an unnervingly familiar rhythm. Suddenly, TARA's hologram distorted, stretching and twisting into shapes that shouldn't have been possible. For a split second, Alex saw something that looked like a mass of tentacles and eyes before the projection snapped back to normal. I apologize," CARA said, their usually steady voice wavering. "My visual processors appear to be malfunctioning. I'm detecting entities that cannot exist within known parameters of reality." Jake burst into the room, his face pale. "Alex, you need to see this. The warning wall. It's changed again." They hurried to the corridor where they'd first discovered the strange, shifting text. Dr. Frick was already there, their alien form pressed against the opposite wall, as far from the inscriptions as possible. By the void, the synorchaeologist whispered through their translator. "It's speaking directly to us now." The wall's surface rippled like dark water, and words formed in perfect English. "Legacy Bioriras Urituorn. The great silly EPWEAKNs. Those who you must NEVR DODUAK star in their shajanes." As Alex watched, the text shifted, becoming complex mathematical equations, then Mandarin, then Arabic, then languages she'd never seen before. But when she reached out to touch the surface, it settled back into English. "It only responds to human touch," Jake said, excitement overwhelming his fear. "We tried with Dr. Frick and the other non-human team members. Nothing but any human contact, and..." A violent tremor shook the temple, sending them all staggering. Emergency lights flashed as Kiara's voice came through their comms, distorted and glitching. "Multiple systems failures detected. Security protocols. Engaging. Danger. Danger. They're in my code. There." The AI's voice cut out with a shriek of static. In the sudden silence, they heard something that sounded like distant, massive breathing. "We must leave." Dr. Frick's translator barely kept up with their panicked clicking. "The builders, they were like you. Human, but not human. They built this place as a prison, a cage for things that must not be named. My species has legends, warnings about places like this. They all end in death." Another tremor rocked the temple, and the walls began to bleed a dark, oily substance that moved against gravity. "Alex," Sarah's voice came through the comms, tight with fear. "The main lab. Marcus just collapsed. He's breathing, but his eyes are gone. Just empty sockets with that same black liquid. Get out of there," Alex ordered, already running toward the lab. "Everyone evacuate to the surface. Jake, help Dr. Frick." She rounded a corner and slammed into an invisible barrier. The air rippled where she touched it, and suddenly she was seeing through the floor, through space itself, to something vast and dark and hungry moving in dimensions that shouldn't exist. A voice that felt like ice in her brain whispered, "The bloodline returns. The keys awaken. Did they prepare you, little inheritor? Did they tell you what sleeps beneath reality's skin?" The barrier vanished. Alex stumbled forward, her nose bleeding, her mind reeling from contact with whatever had spoken. Behind her, She heard Jake shouting her name, but his voice seemed to come from very far away. In her pocket, her personal tablet activated on its own. Across its screen, words appeared in that same flowing script. Only human consciousness can maintain the seal. Only human dreams can KG You carry their LGCY in your VRATOMs. Alexandre Michigiel. The prison must know TFAL. The temple shuddered once more, and deep below, something began to wake up. Blood trickled from Alex's nose as she pressed her palm against the pulsing central pillar in the temple's heart. 3 alien researchers lay unconscious behind her, their minds shut down after attempting to interface with the temple's security systems. But where they had failed, her touch sparked an immediate response. The chamber erupted in light, a holographic galaxy materializing around them. Jake stumbled back as a star system passed through his body, its planets casting ghostly shadows on the ancient floor. Neural pattern accepted. A voice echoed, neither male nor female, speaking in perfectly accented English. Legacy bearer status confirmed. Activating primary interface. A figure coalesced before them, humanoid but not quite human, its form shifting between states of matter like a liquid crystal sculpture. I am Echo 7, last surviving fragment of the Builder's collective consciousness. You have questions, Alexandra Mitchell. As do I. Why us? Alex asked, wiping blood from her nose. Why humans? The figure gestured, and the galaxy map zoomed in on Earth. Your planet was not chosen by chance. You were engineered, a backup plan seeded across time. The Builders faced an enemy they could not defeat, only contain. But containment required special properties. Properties found only in minds like yours. The hologram shifted, showing creatures that hurt to look at. Masses of geometric impossibilities that seemed to fold through dimensions that shouldn't exist. They came from outside. Outside time, outside space, outside thought itself. They feed on consciousness, on awareness, on the very act of existence. But human consciousness is poison to them. Because we were engineered to be. Jake asked, his scanner frantically trying to record everything. No, Echo 7 replied. Because you evolved beyond your programming. The Builders created the potential, but humanity shaped itself into something unique. Your minds can perceive the impossible without breaking. You can hold paradox without collapse. You dream of things that cannot be, and in doing so, make them real. The chamber shuddered. In the distance, they heard screams. The containment fields weaken, Echo 7 said urgently. The creators built these temples as prisons, powered by their own consciousness. They sacrificed themselves to maintain the barriers between dimensions. But after eons, even their mighty minds begin to fade. We needed inheritors. We needed you. Alex's tablet erupted in static, Sierra's voice breaking through. Dr. Mitchell. Multiple breaches detected in sectors 7 through 13. Something's coming through. The holographic galaxy vanished, replaced by security feeds. Alex watched in horror as shadows with too many angles moved through the corridors, passing through walls like they were smoke. Where they touched, reality seemed to crack. Your eye construct, Echo 7 observed. It cannot survive direct contact with them. Digital consciousness is too rigid, too defined. But you, watch. One of the shadow creatures surged through the wall toward them. Jake shouted a warning, but Alex stood her ground. As the thing reached for her, she felt it touch her mind, and recoiled as if burned. Your consciousness is chaos given form, Echo 7 explained as the creature retreated. Your thoughts run in patterns that they cannot consume. The Builders made you compatible with their technology, but humanity made itself toxic to the outside. How do we stop them? Alex demanded, her head pounding as more alarms blared. You cannot stop them. You can only contain them. The temple must be reactivated, but it requires a price. The same price the builders paid. A human consciousness, freely given to power the containment fields. Another tremor rocked the temple. Echo 7's form flickered. They sense awakening power. They will come in force now. You have a choice to make, Alexandra Mitchell. The builders believe humanity would choose wisely. They believe you would understand the responsibility they left you. But the choice must be yours. Through the walls, through the floor, through dimensions humans were never meant to see, Alex felt them coming. Endless, hungry, and somewhere in the darkness between realities, something vast was beginning to stir. How long? She asked. How long do we have? Echo 7's form began to fade. Until the great sleep ends. Until the one below wakes. After that, there will be no more choices left to make. The hologram vanished, leaving them alone in the darkness with the sound of approaching impossibilities. The quantum-drilled scream echoed through the temple's corridors, its harmonics setting Alex's teeth on edge. Through the security feeds, she watched Genesis Corporation's mercenaries cutting through the outer barriers like they were paper. They don't understand what they're doing, Jake said, his fingers flying over the holographic controls Echo 7 had activated for them. Those drills, they're not just cutting through matter, they're punching holes in. A sound like reality tearing made them both wince. On the feeds, the first team of mercenaries broke through. They wore sleek powered armor, their helmets gleaming under the temple's dying lights. This is Genesis Corp Security Force Alpha. Their leader's voice crackled through the general comm channel. We are securing this site under Corporate Jurisdiction Act 47. All personnel are ordered to evacuate immediately. Alex grabbed her tablet. This is Dr. Alexandra Mitchell. You need to shut down those drills now. You're compromising containment systems that are holding back. The feed distorted, showing something moving through the breach points. Shadows that bent wrong. Geometries that shouldn't exist, pouring through the holes the drills had created. Multiple containment failures detected, Sierra's damaged voice reported. Dimensional barriers at 47% strength and falling. They're getting through. On the security feed, the mercenaries didn't even have time to scream. The shadows passed through their armor like it wasn't there, and Alex watched in horror as the soldiers collapsed, their bodies empty husks. But it was what she saw happening to their neural patterns that made her stomach turn, their consciousness being consumed, devoured by things that existed in angles she couldn't comprehend. Fall back, she ordered through the comm. Everyone fall back to the central chamber. Jake, help me activate the secondary barriers. They worked frantically, using the knowledge Echo 7 had granted them. The temple responded to their touch, to their thoughts, in ways it never had before. But it wasn't enough. A second team of mercenaries burst through another wall, their drills creating new breaches. This time, Alex saw it clearly. The moment the shadows touched them, tried to feed, and recoiled. The hell! One of the mercenaries stumbled back. Something just. What was that? Human consciousness, Alex whispered, understanding dawning. Jake, tell everyone still alive to focus their thoughts, to imagine walls, barriers, anything solid. They can't process our type of consciousness. Through the feeds, she watched as the shadows encountered more humans. Each time they tried to feed, they withdrew in what almost seemed like pain. But the mercenaries kept drilling, kept creating new breaches, and what was coming through now was worse than shadows. Dr. Mitchell. Kiara's voice was barely recognizable now. Something vast is approaching the primary breach. My sensors. I cannot describe. I'm failing. The AI's voice dissolved into digital static. On her tablet, Alex watched as Kiara's code was literally unwritten, consumed by mathematical impossibilities that her human mind couldn't process. The temple shuddered. Through the new breaches, Alex felt something ancient stirring. The walls began to bleed that strange, dark fluid again, but now it moved with purpose. forming symbols that burned themselves into her mind. The one below, she translated, the words tasting like metal in her mouth. It's starting to wake up. Jake grabbed her arm. Alex, look. The remaining mercenaries had fallen back to their entry point, but it was too late. Reality itself seemed to flex and twist around the quantum trills. Space folded in ways that made Alex's eyes water. And through the tears in existence, she caught glimpses of what waited outside. Vast geometries of living mathematics, hungry for the ordered physics of their universe. The containment field, she said, pressing her hands against the nearest wall. I can feel it. If we don't do something now. The wall pulsed under her touch, and suddenly she wasn't just seeing the temple systems, she was feeling them, becoming them. She felt the ancient builder's memories burning through her mind, showing her what needed to be done, what needed to be sacrificed. This site must be cleansed. The alien counselor's hologram towered over them in the central chamber, its crystalline form refracting light in uncomfortable ways. The containment protocols have failed. We cannot risk another breach. Alex stood her ground, even as warning sirens blared around them. Behind her, Jake worked frantically to stabilize the remaining barriers using the knowledge they'd gained. The surviving members of both her team and the Genesis Corp mercenaries huddled together, their earlier conflicts forgotten in the face of cosmic horror. You knew, she accused, watching the counselor's faceted surfaces shift. You knew about these temples all along. How many have you destroyed? How many civilizations have you sacrificed to keep this secret? The crystalline being's colors darkened. 17 temples, 12 civilizations. We do what must be done to protect this galaxy from what sleeps in the spaces between spaces. Your species was not meant to discover this place for another 1,000 years. You are not ready. A massive tremor rocked the temple. Through the walls, Alex felt the barriers weakening. The one below was stirring more strongly now, its dreams leaking into reality. She saw it in the way light bent wrong, in the impossible shadows that crawled across the floor. Security teams report multiple breaches in all sectors. Sarah's voice crackled through the comm. We're losing the outer rings. Those things, they're getting stronger the further we move from the central chamber. Dr. Varric chittered in panic. The council speaks truth. I have seen this before, on my homeworld. There was a temple there, once. Now that continent is quarantined. Nothing lives there. Nothing can live there. The very laws of physics are broken. The counselor's hologram flickered. Our fleet is in position. We will sterilize this site with concentrated plasma fire. It will destroy everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius, but it will seal the breaches. You have 10 minutes to evacuate. Alex felt the temple's systems pulsing through her mind, showing her the truth. That won't work. The entities are already too strong. A plasma strike will only weaken the dimensional barriers further. She stepped forward, her nose bleeding again. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Humanity. We're connected to this place. We're part of its systems. Which is precisely why you must be eliminated, the counselor stated coldly. Your species carries the builder's legacy. You are walking keys to every temple in the galaxy. As long as humans exist, these prisons can be opened. Another tremor, stronger this time. Jake shouted in alarm as one of his containment algorithms collapsed. Through the breach, Alex saw something vast and geometric unfold itself from angles that shouldn't exist. Two of the mercenaries screamed as their minds shattered from the sight alone. 8 minutes until orbital strike, the counselor announced. Your deaths will be quick. The alternative. There is another way. Alex pressed her hands against the central pillar, letting the temple's knowledge flow through her. The builders didn't just create these temples as prisons. They're conversion engines. Human consciousness can power the containment fields because we're their descendants. We can take their place. Alex, no. Jake moved to pull her away, but stopped as her skin began to glow with strange symbols. There has to be another way. 7 minutes, the counselor warned. Through her connection to the temple, Alex felt the truth of their situation crystallizing. The entities couldn't be killed. They existed outside the concept of death. They could only be contained, held back by consciousness that they couldn't consume. Human consciousness. Her consciousness. But the price. Another breach opened, reality tearing like wet paper. Through it, she caught a glimpse of what waited beyond, and understood why the builders had sacrificed everything to keep it contained. The choice was always meant to be ours, she whispered, the temple's light pulsing in sync with her heartbeat. The builders knew we'd face this moment. They trusted us to make the right decision. The question was, what was the right decision? Focus. Alex shouted over the reality-bending chaos. Whatever you can imagine, make it solid in your mind. The surviving humans formed a circle in the central chamber, their backs to each other. As the entities poured through the breaches, each person became a beacon of mental energy. Jake visualized an impenetrable wall of pure mathematics, equations flowing like water. Sarah conjured memories of ancient castle fortifications, their stone walls glowing with impossible strength. Even the remaining mercenaries contributed, their military training translating into hardened bunkers and defensive positions. The temple responded to their collective visualization, drawing power from their minds. Where the shadows touched their mental constructs, they'd recoiled, hissing in frequencies that made reality shiver. The field is stabilizing, Jake called out, reading the temple's diagnostics through the holographic interface. Whatever we're doing, it's working. Alex stood at the center of their circle, her hands pressed against the master control pillar. Through her connection to the temple's systems, she saw everything. The writhing geometries of the entities, the approaching fleet of alien ships, and the stirring form of the one below, its vast consciousness beginning to pierce the veil between dimensions. The orbital strike approaches, the alien counselor's hologram warned. 4 minutes remaining. Your resistance is admirable, but futile. A wave of darkness swept through the chamber, and 2 of the mercenaries collapsed, blood streaming from their eyes. Their minds had been strong, but maintaining the defensive visualizations was taking its toll. Reality itself seemed to flex and twist around them, trying to accommodate shapes and angles that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. They're adapting, Alex realized, watching through the temple's sensors as the entities began to probe their defenses in new ways. They're learning from each attack. We need something more, something they can't predict. She reached out through her neural connection to the others. Don't just think of walls. Think of change, of chaos, of things that break their own rules. That's why they can't consume us. Human imagination doesn't follow logical patterns. Understanding dawned on their faces. Sarah began imagining scenes from her favorite surrealist paintings, where physics bent and perspective meant nothing. One of the mercenaries, a woman named Rodriguez, drew on childhood memories of kaleidoscopes and fever dreams. Jake shifted his mathematical walls into Mobius strips of pure contradiction. The entities screamed in frequencies that shattered the remaining normal glass in the chamber. Where human imagination met cosmic horror, reality itself seemed uncertain which rules to follow. 3 minutes to orbital strike, the counselor announced, but Alex barely heard it. Through her connection to the temple, she felt something changing. The defensive visualizations weren't just holding the entities back, they were actually hurting them. Human consciousness, with all its contradictions and impossibilities, was like acid to beings that existed in rigid geometric perfection. The builders, she gasped as new understanding flooded her mind. They didn't just make us compatible with their technology. They made us weaponize chaos. A massive tremor shook the temple as the one below pushed harder against the dimensional barriers. Alex felt its vast intelligence trying to make sense of what it was encountering, and failing. Human minds were puzzles it couldn't solve, dreams it couldn't categorize, chaos it couldn't consume. But maintaining that chaos was destroying them. Blood ran from the nose and ears of every human in the chamber. Their minds were burning out from the strain of imagining the unimaginable. 2 minutes, the counselor intoned. Alex felt the temple's systems pulsing desperately. They were holding back the tide, but only barely. The one below was still waking, still rising, and even weaponized human consciousness wouldn't be enough to stop it completely. Unless, through the temple's knowledge, through the memories of the builders encoded in its walls, she saw what needed to be done. Why the conversion engine had been built in the first place. What it truly meant to become a guardian. "Jake," she said quietly, even as reality warped around them, "I know what we have to do, but I'm going to need your help." Her oldest friend met her eyes and nodded, understanding without words. Sometimes the only way to cage chaos was to become chaos itself. The conversion engine was never meant to simply trap a consciousness. Alex explained as Jake helped her connect to the temple's core systems. Reality buckled around their defensive circle as the others maintained their mental barriers. It was designed to transform it, to create something new. Blood ran freely from her nose now, but she barely noticed. Through her deepening connection to the temple, she could see the truth the builders had encoded into its very atoms. The entities weren't just beings from another dimension. They were the antithesis of human consciousness itself. Where humans thrived on chaos and creativity, they existed as pure, unchanging geometry. 1 minute to orbital strike, the counselor's hologram announced dispassionately. "Alex," Jake's voice cracked as he realized what she was planning. "There has to be another way. If we all connected to the system together." "It doesn't work like that." She managed a small smile despite the pain burning through her neural pathways. "The engine needs a focal point, one consciousness to act as a template for the transformation. The builders, they each sacrificed themselves individually, becoming living barriers between dimensions." Another tremor rocked the temple. Through the breaches, geometric shadows writhed and twisted, trying to break through the failing mental barriers of the surviving humans. Sarah collapsed, her mind finally giving out from the strain of maintaining her visualizations. Rodriguez caught her before she hit the floor. 45 seconds, the counselor intoned. Alex felt the one below stirring more strongly now, its vast intelligence pressing against the walls of reality. The temple's original containment field was almost gone. Soon, not even their combined human consciousness would be enough to hold it back. "Jake," she gripped his hand, "I need you to complete the connection. And then I need you to get everyone out." "I won't leave you," he protested, even as his fingers moved across the holographic controls, doing what needed to be done. "Yes, you will." She closed her eyes as the temple's full systems interfaced with her mind. "Because someone needs to tell Earth what happened here, what humanity really is, what we were meant to be." The final connections clicked into place. Alex screamed as ancient knowledge flooded her consciousness. Not just data, but the actual experiences of the builders who had sacrificed themselves before. She saw the war they had fought against the geometric entities, the desperate plan they had conceived, the careful engineering of humanity as both inheritors and weapons. 30 seconds to orbital strike. "Now, Jake." Alex's voice echoed with harmonics that shouldn't have been possible. Her skin began to glow with the same symbols they'd seen throughout the temple. "Get them out. The conversion is starting, and human minds aren't meant to witness this." Jake hesitated for one moment, tears in his eyes, then began herding the others toward the exit. As they ran, Alex felt her consciousness expanding, transforming. She wasn't just interfacing with the temple anymore. She was becoming the temple. Through eyes that were no longer entirely human, she watched the one below breach the final dimensional barrier. Its geometry was beautiful in its horrible perfection, a crystalline intelligence that had never known change or chaos or dreams. 15 seconds, the counselor warned. Alex laughed, the sound rippling through multiple dimensions. "You don't understand, do you? This was never about containing them. The builders, they found a way to fight back. And now so have I." Her consciousness exploded outward, no longer bound by physical form. She became a storm of human chaos, of dreams and contradictions and impossible things. Where she touched the geometric entities, they shattered, unable to maintain their perfect forms in the face of pure, weaponized imagination. The one below recoiled, experiencing fear for the first time in its ancient existence. It had expected to find a prison. Instead, it found something far worse. A human mind, unfettered by dimensional constraints, ready to bring chaos to its ordered void. The sacrifice was never about death. Alex's voice echoed through realities. It was about transformation. And as the orbital strike began its final descent, Alexandra Mitchell ceased to be human and became something gloriously, terrifyingly more. 3 months after the Kepler incident, Jake stood before the United Earth Council, his hand steady as he activated the holographic display. The chamber fell silent as images of the temple appeared, along with readings that defied conventional physics. "What you're seeing isn't just a containment facility," he explained. "It's an evolution chamber." And Dr. Alexandra Mitchell wasn't its victim. She was its first success. The alien counselor's crystalline form shimmered in protest. "You cannot possibly expect us to allow." Jake laughed, and the sound held an edge that made the counselor retreat slightly. "You don't have a choice. The temple isn't just active, it's expanding. And Alex is changing the rules of the game." The hologram shifted, showing the temple's new configuration. Where there had been decay and ancient silence, now there was growth. Impossible geometries flowered in ways that seemed to celebrate chaos rather than fear it. And at the center of it all, a presence that was no longer entirely human, yet more human than ever. "The builders didn't create us to replace them," Jake continued. "They created us to surpass them. Where they could only contain the entities, we can actually fight them. Human consciousness, properly transformed, isn't just toxic to them, it's lethal." Sarah stepped forward, her own neural readings displayed alongside the temple's data. "The changes aren't limited to the temple. Every human who was present during the transformation shows altered neural patterns. We're evolving, just as the builders planned. But we're doing it our way." The council chamber erupted in concerned murmurs as she demonstrated, her thoughts briefly manifesting as visible patterns in the air. Several alien representatives backed away, their species' ancient instincts recognizing something both wonderful and terrible. "This is what the other temples were supposed to be," Jake said quietly. "Not just prisons, but training grounds. Evolution chambers waiting for humanity to find them. To become what we were always meant to be." Through the holographic display, they watched as Alex's transformed consciousness danced through dimensions that shouldn't have been accessible. The one below remained contained, but not by barriers or fields. Instead, it was entangled in a storm of human dreams and imagination, trapped in an ever-changing maze of impossibilities that its perfect geometric mind couldn't process. "We're establishing a permanent presence at the temple," Sarah announced. "The first class of volunteers begins training next week. Under Alex's guidance, they'll learn to transform their consciousness while maintaining their humanity, something the builders never managed to achieve." "You're playing with forces you don't understand," the counselor warned. "These entities have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours." "No," Jake corrected. "They destroyed civilizations more technologically advanced than ours. But none of them had what we have, the ability to dream the impossible and make it real. The builders didn't choose us for our technology. They chose us for our chaos." On the display, the temple pulsed with new life. Other humans were arriving, drawn by something they couldn't quite explain. Each one carried within them the potential for transformation, for evolution beyond the boundaries of conventional consciousness. "The entities are geometric perfection," Jake explained. "Unchanging, unyielding, consuming everything that follows their rules of reality. But humans, we break rules. We imagine things that can't exist, and then we make them exist anyway. We're what they fear most, chaos that creates instead of destroys." Sarah touched the display, and Alex's transformed presence acknowledged her, sending ripples through multiple dimensions. We're not just guardians anymore. We're becoming something new, something that can fight back against the darkness between dimensions. The counselor's crystalline form dimmed. And what happens when you lose control? When your chaos infects our ordered universe? Jake smiled, and for a moment, his eyes held depths that hadn't been there before. That's the beautiful part. We never had control in the first place. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us perfect for this fight. In the temple, Alexandra Mitchell, no longer entirely human but more herself than ever, continued her work. Around her, reality reshaped itself according to rules that changed with every breath. And in the spaces between spaces, the geometric entities faced something they had never encountered before. A prison built not of order, but of dreams. The age of containment was over. The age of transformation had begun.